So you weren't like super excited when he first reached out.
Wait, hold on a second. This is good stuff for the podcast. Stop asking him all the good questions early. All right, Jason Shapiro, thanks for joining us on the Off the Charts podcast. I'm Sean McLaughlin. He's Steve Straza. You've met Steve before. We're pretty excited to have our first market wizard on the show. Not only are you the first market wizard, but I think you are the first self-proclaimed contrarian that we've had on the podcast, right? I think so, Straza.
Yes.
Self-proclaimed, but that's what they seem to want to call me, so we can go with it.
Jason, I follow you on Twitter, and you had a tweet earlier this week that caught my attention, and I absolutely loved it. I want to kick off this conversation right here. I'm going to read this tweet back to you. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but for everybody else, let me read it. You wrote, "People tell me, quote, I want to be a trader because I love trading. But everyone loves trading. It's a vice like gambling or drinking. The question is, will it make your life happier and more fulfilling? Would you think if someone said, I want to be an alcoholic because I love drinking? What would you think if someone said that?" I love that. What sparked that rant? And let's talk about it.
So I have people contact me quite a bit because I was in that book and whatever. They read the chapter and they like it and they contact me they send me like messages, right? And I try to answer as many as I can. Look, I'm at a point in my life where really I'm trying to help people. So this guy contacted me, and I thought he was going to kill me, quite frankly, because he's like, "Hey, you're in my head because I went jogging yesterday morning and I listened to the book and I really loved your chapter. And is it possible we could have coffee?" I'm like, "Where are you?" And he's like, "New York." I go, "We can have coffee, bro, but I'm in Rhode Island. I don't know when we're getting to New York, so I don't know how we're having coffee." He's like, "Oh, I'll be up there tomorrow." He's like, "We're in Rhode Island. I'll be up there tomorrow morning." I'm like,
Uh-oh.
But he came and I met him for coffee and we sat for like a couple hours and he was actually a super nice guy. And, but it's a conversation that I hear from people all the time, "Hey, I really want to be a trader." "Why?" "Oh, because I love trading." And I don't think and I was the same. Look, here I am because I put myself in this position when I was younger and then I couldn't go any other way, you know what I mean? Because I was stuck, right? But people don't, I love trading. Who doesn't love trading? Like I say, it's like gambling. You know what I mean? Who doesn't love gambling, right? Who doesn't love, all these vices? Doesn't mean that's what you should do with your life. Personally, I try to convince people out of it all the time. I'm like, dude, be a lawyer, okay? Go make I just had to hire a lawyer. $900 an hour is what lawyers are charging now. You know what I mean? Like, go be a lawyer and then take your $900 an hour and trade that if you want to trade and have fun and all that shit. You know what I mean? That's the best advice I can give you. And of course, the guy didn't like that advice, but I've given it to a number of people. But this whole idea of, "Oh, I love trading. That's why I want to be a trader." Okay, everybody loves trading. Like I say, I love drinking, so I want to be an alcoholic. Like to me, it's the same thing. And he's getting into it. "Oh, like I read that Jesse Livermore book and, I loved it so much." I'm like, great. First of all, my son is named Jesse, okay? Because when I lived in Hong Kong and I was a kid and when I first started trading, they used to call me the boy plunger, right? So I named my kid Jesse. So I get it. By the way, his middle name is James after Jim Morrison. So, but I get it, okay? I get it. And I was telling him this. I go, what happened to Jesse Livermore, right? He died broke and he put a gun to his head and killed himself. So before you start thinking, "Hey, I love trading and Jesse Livermore is so cool," think about where the guy ended up, man. Broke and committing suicide.
It's funny you mentioned that. Last time I was in New York City, I actually went to the Sherry Netherland Hotel into that lobby where he committed suicide. And I found like an old usher guy. He was like the doorman or whatever. And I was like, "Hey, do you know the history of this place?" And he's like, he seemed kind of confused. And I was like, "This is like a famous hotel where an old Wall Street speculator." He's like, "Oh yeah, I've heard about that guy." Yeah, he's like, he pointed me, he said, "It happened right there in that room, right over there." He knew the whole legend, and that was crazy.
I mean, people forget that. You know what I mean? It seems like this great sexy thing and like this exciting thing, but you know what I mean? That's not very exciting. You know where Jesse Livermore's granddaughter is, right?
No, I don't. Where is she?
She's a very famous MILF porn star.
I did not know that.
But this is a theme, right? Where if you read the book, that could very easily, it probably should be the takeaway. This man's life was a mess. But 9 out of 10 people that you talk to who idolize Jesse Livermore and love this book, they take away everything else about how great of a trader he was and how cool that is, right? And it's got like this badass appeal to it. Why don't people want to focus on the maybe not so great aspects of being a trader and living your life that way?
Because they don't know it. You know, I've been living my life now this way for 30 something years. And it's not what people think. Do I love the markets? Yes. Do I love the puzzle? Do I love figuring it out? Do I love this? That? Yes. Send me back 35 years. Would I do it again? No. Quite frankly, no.
Wow. You know, you have continuing that tweet thread from earlier. You had a follow-up tweet later on where you said, "Is there another job where you can work your ass off and lose money?"
Well, because that's what people love about it. They think it's like, oh, well, you don't have to have a boss and you don't have to, you make your own hours and you do. It's bullshit. Make your own hours. I asked my wife, she's sitting right here. I sit in front of these fucking screens 18 hours a day. Is that making my own freaking hours? You know what I mean? I got to sleep, this is my nap time, but I got to sleep between 4 and 7 every day so that I can wake up and I can be, where the Asian markets are. Like, if you think you're just going to show up a few hours a day and you're going to make money doing this, you're out of your freaking mind. This is one of the hardest things in the world to do. And if you're not focused all the time on this stuff, you're going to have a very hard time over time making money. And that's the point, even if you are focused all the time, it's still hard to make money. Okay. Which is a very, very, very difficult thing to do. Okay. And you think it's going to be this dream thing of, I just put in a few hours. I come in the morning, I day trade from 9:30 to 12 and I'm done. I make my $5,000 on the day. I'm done. And then I go play golf and then I do the same thing the next morning. You are kidding yourself. Okay. I am telling you, you are kidding yourself. So just be careful what you're dreaming of, man, because your dream might come true. And then you end up looking like this.
You're preaching. Sorry, go ahead, Straza.
Jason, were you one of those people though? So you got into trading
100,000%.
Right? So you had to slowly find out that all of the things that early on appealed to you about being a trader maybe weren't true. Isn't that depressing?
Yes. I'm depressed. I'm a depressed human being, man. I got to sit here now. I got no choice now. Like, no one's hiring me to do anything else. Okay. So this is my life. And I say it to myself every night. I'll have a shitty day and I'll be like, I freaking hate this. I want to be done. I want to retire. I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to retire. And I say it to myself, this is the life you chose, dude. So you've got to live with it, because
that's such an important thing. I mean, one thing I wrote about this years ago. I started trading in the late 90s. And one thing that people don't tell you when you get into this business, once you get down the road and you've invested 10 years of your life in it or 15 years of your life in it, you might be okay at what you do as a trader. But if you decide 15 years in that trading is not the life you want to live anymore, well, good luck getting a job somewhere else. You don't really have the resume to go get a job at a consultant or at an accounting firm or whatever the hell else you want to do. They're going to look at your resume and say, 15 years of day trading stocks? What the hell? What do we do with you?
I say to people all the time, these young kids, go to law school, dude, and then trade with the money that you're making. And if you put up, a bunch of years trading and you start making more money consistently trading than you are as a lawyer, then quit and become a trader. Okay. Good for you. Right. But the chances of success are so low, in particular over time. And the things that I know about the psychology of it, because I've lived it and I've been surrounded by people that live it. Right. I tell people all the time, go to law school, dude.
A lot of the lawyers always have a job.
A lot of the traders that I know are like, they're trading as a hobby, even though they might not know it. They're older guys. They've had successful businesses, and now they're just kind of bored, and they have capital laying around.
That's good.
Right? And that's just fine, right? Because they're doing, like you said, it's gambling, and they're doing that instead of gambling, I guess.
They're having fun.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They're probably smart enough to do it with the kind of money that if they lose some, it's not going to kill them because they sold the business and they're sitting on money, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? I say that to people all the time. If you're going to treat this as a hobby, that's fine. But know what a hobby is. I have hobbies. Okay. I don't make money out of any of my hobbies. Right? I spend money on my hobbies. Right. I don't make money out of my hobbies. And I spend the money on my hobbies that I can afford to spend. I'm not looking, you know what I mean? Like I play guitar. Okay. I buy a new guitar. I get a guitar teacher. Yeah. I think maybe in the back of my mind, I still hope it's going to happen. But the chances that I'm going to become a rock star and make money out of this, despite my good looks, are very, very small, approaching zero very quickly, right? So I take it for what it is. Hey, I give a guy $100 for a guitar lesson. Okay, it's sunk money. I can afford that, and that's what I'll do. I go and buy myself a guitar. Okay, a couple $1,000. Okay, I can afford it. It's sunk money. I don't think it's going to give me a return. It's a hobby, and if that's what trading is for you, then great.
Yeah, you're talking more about a college student who has a million different opportunities and things he could do, saying, "Don't be a trader.
Go to law school."
Now, Jason, I think you would agree with this. We say this a lot on this podcast, that I firmly believe that the act of trading is easy. The X's and O's, the buying and the selling, the physical part of trading is easy, but being a trader is fucking hard. That's where it's at.
To trade is the simplest thing in the world. Open up an account, hit the buy button, hit the sell button, whoop-de-doo, off we go. You know what I mean? Hey, woo!
Yeah, anybody can get lucky on a 50-50 bet and make money, right? But it's doing it over and over. That's where the rubber hits the road.
And, you know, it's so hard. I could hand you a system that does nothing but make money, and there's still a good chance you're going to mess it up. Mm-hmm. It's all here, right? And that's what people don't get. You know, it's here, and it's painful to deal with your own frailties and to deal with all your behavioral biases and the psychology behind all this shit, right? It's very, very painful. Now, does it help you grow as a person? Yes, it helps you grow as a person because you have to face up to these things. Where in a lot of places you don't have to face up to these things, right? So that's great, but it's extremely difficult, doubting yourself all the time, you know what I mean? And knowing as time goes by, you're into it 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you realize the things that you're talking about, right? Was I lucky or was I good? You know what I mean? We were actually just talking about this for quite a bit today, since the markets were so slow and boring today. On my Discord, we're having this whole conversation about, you know, like Druckenmiller, who I think is one of my idols, you know what I mean? But the guy's drawn down over 40% in his life. And had he been working today for some hedge fund, he'd be fired. He wouldn't have been around to make those returns back, right? And so that's just luck, you know, who his investors were, that they were able to stay with him despite the drawdowns, this and that, right? There's so much luck involved that is beyond your control, forgetting just the trading part, the whole rest of it, right? It's just, no one's going to listen to it. No one ever listens. Okay. Nor did I, but it's not what people think it is. It's not this freedom thing. And do I live that? Do I have no boss? Yes. Okay. I have some clients, but I've known these people a long time. They know what I do. They knew what I do for their portfolio. So I don't have a lot of hassles. I did start a hedge fund. I don't know if it was about 15 years ago. That was a lot bigger than the one I run now. And I had a whole bunch of people working for me. And I had to take on all these clients because I needed the fee income to support all the expenses that I had going there. And it was horrible. It almost freaking killed me. Okay. Because I had all these clients that really shouldn't have been my clients. Right. They were in there for the wrong reasons. They were return chasing, which means as soon as I have 3 down months, you know what I mean? They're calling me up every day and telling me I suck and they're going to fire me and getting in my head. And that's the last thing a trader needs, right? So I ended up shutting that whole thing down. And I started my current fund, about 6-7 years ago, and purposely did it this way. I work by myself. I don't have any expenses, right? I don't charge my clients any management fee. because that way it frees me up to trade as I need to trade, right? And I have the clients that understand why I'm managing money for them. And clearly it's like, oh, why are you managing money? Because you're making the money. Not, yes, obviously, nobody's going to let me manage their money if I'm not making them money, but specifically where I fit in their portfolios. And I think that's what people don't understand and miss a lot. I think to me, as I have become sort of an educator, which is only the last few years where I've tried to help educate people on this stuff, a lot of points that I never really thought of consciously come up. And I think one of the most important points is at the end of the day, you're doing this because you want to increase your net worth, right? The real way to increase your net worth is to have a bunch of different investments and to have them be non-correlated to each other. That's the magic in investing, right? And trading can be that, right? You have your long only portfolio that you're putting in every month or whatever, into the S&P or whatever the hell you're putting it. You have your real estate, your house, right? Which is probably pretty correlated to that because they're both pretty correlated to economic growth, right? Where are you going to get some non-correlation? Trading can do that. But the dream of I'm going to put all my money in an account and I'm going to turn my $500,000 into a $500 million, has it been done? Yes. But the chances of you doing that are so ridiculously small that you might as well just go buy lotto tickets every freaking day. So that's about the same chance of you doing that. So instead of putting your money into this, just go buy lotto tickets every day and you can become a billionaire that way too, right?
So you're treating your trading as if it's just a different and diversified strategy from your other investments.
Well,
the way you look at
my trading, I manage money for institutions. That's what they treat it as. It is a zero to negatively correlated return stream to just about everything they have, which makes sense based on what I'm doing. I'm basically selling things that everybody is long and I'm buying things that everybody's short. So by definition, it's going to be zero to negatively correlated and always has been. That's why they give me money. I always say, look at me working in my house alone. Why would an institution give me money? I can't even get through half of their checklists, because I don't have backup and I don't have this. If I were a trend follower, I wouldn't manage any money because they could give it to one of these billion-dollar trend following firms that have 100 people working there and have the backup and all that and get it through their investment committee very easily, right? The only reason I'm able to do it is because, and I didn't plan it this way. This just happens to be how I think and how I trade. But as it turned out, and as I got to know the business, it does offer this negative correlation thing, which very few things can do. I can offer you negative correlation and trend following. Every time there's a trend, buy, just sell. Every time there's a trend, but then I'm just going to lose when they make and I'm going to make when they lose, right? What I tend to do is not lose very much when they're making. And then when they're losing a lot, I make a lot. So therefore, it fits mathematically into a portfolio. So that's how my clients treat it. For me, because I get paid X percent of what I make these people, right? And I manage X amount of money. So therefore, my exposure is that percentage of how much I manage. And so therefore, it's a much higher percent of what I should have in there because it's my business, right? But right. Like if it were me, you're talking about that amount. If you say I'm managing $100 million and I'm getting a 20% payout, for example, right? That means I have $20 million in this strategy, right? Well, that's more than my net worth. You know what I mean? Like my exposure to this is way too high, but that's because this is my business. So of course it's way too high.
You hinted at something earlier about one of the things that makes being a trader so hard is that you, Jason, over, let's just say the last 10 years, I don't know what your numbers are. You don't need to tell me, but let's just say over the last 10 years, you've earned $1 million of pay every year. You didn't get paid $1 million a year. You might have had 3 years where you made nothing and then you get 5 million as the way you structured your business, right? Because you're not earning a management fee. You're only getting a percentage of profits, and those profits can be very lumpy. And for the average human, at least the average American human who's addicted to a paycheck and a regular stream of income, the idea of such lumpy returns, most people can't handle that, even if the average pay turns out to be really well.
And that gets in your head as well. Listen, I have structured my life over 30 years to get to the point where I can do this now, right? I can charge 0 and 30, right? Because I have saved my money and I don't spend any money. Okay. I don't live in a mansion. I don't drive sports cars. I take some nice vacations, but other than that, I live a very simple life, right? I don't have employees. I don't have costs, right? So I've structured my life so that I can do that, right? And people laugh at me all the time, dude. You know, like for a while, up until about 2 years ago, I drove a 25-year-old car, you know? People are like, dude, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, listen, man, my friend had this car and she sold it to me for, she's a mechanic and she had it and I knew it would work well. And she sold it to me for $2,500 man. To me, that's a bargain. I drove that car for 4 years for $2,500. You know, like that's just how I structure my life, you know, because I don't care because I want to do this, you know, this way. But you're right. It's very lumpy. And if you need money, it can be very, and again, that's what gets in your head, right? Oh, I need to make money. As soon as that happens, man, you're dead because now it just gets in your trading, right? Trading has to be very, very disciplined and that takes you out of your discipline, right? And now you're in trouble, right? Now you get out of your discipline. You lost a bunch of money on a trade that you weren't disciplined on. Now you got to make that back. So what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Now it's all in your head. Now you're all screwed up and you know what I mean? Like this is what makes trading's hard enough. Trying to figure out if a market's going to go up or down and all that shit, right? That's hard enough, right? But that's the easy part. You know, it's all this other stuff that is so difficult. Just like you say, this lumpiness of your payout and all this. And during that lumpiness, you know, you're doubting yourself and you're doubting everything, and then that gets in your head, and you know what I mean. Now don't have confidence, and if you don't have confidence, then how are you going to place trades?
So
I run a process. I run like a system almost. It's like a process that's the same. All my trades, and I still struggle with all of this. So I've been doing the same process for 24 years, and I haven't had a single freaking down year in 24 years. So I believe very strongly that it works, but I still struggle with it.
okay, so that's what I was going to ask next, right? It's one thing so a typical hedge fund would have a management fee that keeps the lights on if you're in a period of drawdown, not earning incentive fees. At least the management fee is always going to be paid and keep the business alive. You're doing this personally, right? Like you said, you don't have costs, you don't have overhead that you have to pay, so you can deal without a management fee. What's the longest you've gone without earning an incentive fee, and what happened?
So, I mean, I've been running this one for about 7 years. I haven't had two down quarters in a row. I don't think. I might have once had two down quarters in a row. My drawdowns tend to be very small. I haven't gone certainly a full year without getting paid. This year remains to be seen. It's been a very slow year for me. Basically, I don't know if I'm up like 2 or 3% right now on the year, and I started off very slow. I had no trades for the first 2 months of the year. And think about that. I've never had that before either. You know, and like you learn these new disciplines every time. I've never had that before. And suddenly I went like 3 months in a row, December, January, where I had no trades. I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
So is that a system thing? That's just the system wasn't generating trades. Okay.
No, and if you think about it, I don't know how much you follow these things, but in those 3 months, trend following and the like crushed it, right? And I'm supposed to offer this negative correlation to that stuff to my clients. So if I can be flat while trend following is crushing it to my clients, I'm a hero, right? But to me, you know what I mean? Like, you know, nobody's buying the baby a new pair of shoes, right? So,
right. Yeah, you didn't lose money, so that's a win, but you're not getting paid on that win.
Exactly. I am in the long term, right? And so therefore, that's why I'm set up for the long term. I didn't know this particular thing was going to happen. I'm well aware that I can have quarters and periods where I don't make any money, but I didn't know that there was going to be no trades. I've never had that before, ever. This was a first for me in 20 plus years. All of a sudden, it's a whole new thing that I had to deal with. And that's not easy to deal with either.
So Jason, we talked earlier about how you consider yourself a contrarian trader. I'm always curious when I talk to people who call themselves contrarian traders, like, were you drawn to this style of trading? Is it a personality quirk of yours? Like you're the kind of guy that always argues with people. You find that fun. Is that like a thing for you?
Yes.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
This is another point to get into the points of what we were making before that ties right into what you're saying here. Trading is so black and white, right? Or black and red, we should say, right? There's no wrong or right. Right is you made money. Wrong is you lost money, right? You can argue with the market all you freaking want. I hear people say it all the time. Oh, I got everything right except price. Well, then you got nothing right because that's the only thing that matters, right? But once, God forbid, you become successful at this and you realize that point, now try and go out in the world. Things can't be measured. And you're at a party and everybody's talking to you about something that you know is, or at least believe is wrong, right? And you can't prove it. I always say, like, I go to a party. I'm not allowed to go to parties anymore. Okay. My wife doesn't let me. But you go to a party and everyone's talking about some movie or whatever, right? And they all love it. And you think it's shit. You can't prove that. There's no black and, there's no P&L there, right? You can't prove it, right? So it becomes very difficult to be socially adjusted, once you become successful at trading, because it's actually a very antisocial thing, in particular when you're sort of being a contrarian, which, to tell you the truth, almost anyone will tell you to make money over time is you have to take that approach, right? So that becomes very difficult too, socially, which, hey, it is. My wife's like, I'll go to, her family's Christmas dinner or whatever. And by the time I get out of there, 3 people are freaking crying. And she's like, why? Why do you have to do this? Like, why can't you just turn it off? I'm like, you can't be half pregnant. This is how I am. This is how I think. And I'm sorry, but this is how it is, right? Now, that's why, to get into the whole contrarian thing, that's why this was a path for me in a way, because at least the good news is being contrarian, if done correctly, and if using risk management and discipline and all that, can make you money in this, right? And I don't have to make friends. I just have to make money, right? So it can work. So that's why this kind of worked for me. I say be a lawyer. If I was in a law firm, well, I've been fired from every job I ever had in my life. Okay. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I was fired from one fund. There were 5 people trading there. 4 lost money. I made money and they fired me.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. But first, it's very clear to you now that your contrarian personality lends itself to your trading process. But 20 years ago, when you just stumbled upon, oh, wow, I can fade large speculators, and that might be a good trading strategy, you probably didn't have like an aha moment at the same time that was like, oh, and this is my personality too. So like, how did you find over time that your trading process and your personality kind of mesh with one another?
Yeah, I think it just kind of worked itself out. One of the first jobs I had on the market, I worked in some retail brokerage place in Hong Kong, and there was a guy there named Isaac who was older than us. I was like 23 or whatever, and he was in his 40s, and he just sat in the back and he managed some money for some clients. He came out of some private client thing and moved over there, and he managed some money from clients. And the retail brokerage, it was just a bunch of kids like me, trying to get some people to give us some money and trading it around. And he would fade us all the time. And we'd laugh at him, right? And then it became very clear very quickly, like, he's totally right. Well, what are the chances that a bunch of 23-year-old yahoos all making the same trades at the same time are going to make money in this business? It approaches 0. So if you're going to fade that, then you can make money, right? And I watched him do that time and again, and he always made money doing it. And so that started to click with me, Like, that makes sense to me, Put 25 kids in their 20s in a room. And I always wanted to start a hedge fund doing that. Just hire 25 random people.
Do the opposite.
Yeah. How could that not make money? It has to.
Right. This whole
it was a retail brokerage house, a little retail brokerage house. Guys trading spoos all day. I'm like, dude, you should just put it up on a screen what they're all doing and create an oscillator when they're all freaking getting long. You got to get short, man. It's a gift.
I love this thread here because I don't consider myself a contrarian, but I totally get why it works. And I read a book recently, perhaps you've read it. It's called The Best Loser Wins by Thomas Hogarth. Have you read this book?
Yeah, great book.
I love what he says about how it's human instinct to want to fit in. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it's human
100%.
instinct to want to fit in. You want to be like everybody else. But in trading, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do, because we know the numbers. 90% of traders ultimately lose money. So why the hell would you want to do what everybody else is doing? Yes, it pays to be contrarian.
It's human nature, man. It's human nature. My brother, who I love, is a lawyer. And he once said to me, I was like, oh, I really think that the stock market, this was like in late 99 when the whole bubble was going. I was like, I think the stock market's in trouble here, dude. He's like, oh, no, blah, 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 blah. I go, dude, I mean, this thing. He goes, well, whatever. If it goes down, I'll lose some money. So will everyone else. So what? I'm like, what?
Oh, yep.
But that's how people think,
Yep.
So, yes, that's right. It's so against human nature, this whole thing. And that makes sense because the market's a discounting mechanism, right? So it has to be against human nature. People are like, oh, the market doesn't make sense. I'm like, but if it made sense, it'd be simple, man. You know what I mean? And everybody, like, people think, oh, you can make money in the market because you know how to make sense of it because you went to school and you understand economics and you understand that stuff. Wrong, right? The more you understand that, the more you're going to lose.
You keep mentioning being a lawyer. Do you think you'd be happy if you decided to be a lawyer? Do you think you could have been a lawyer?
No, I'd be miserable. But I'm miserable anyway. So what's the difference?
How many?
At least I'd be miserable and rich, risk-free rich.
All right, Jason, if you're always miserable, what makes you happy?
Yeah.
My wife makes me happy.
Oh.
She's not watching this. Give me the real answer.
No, that's 100% true. I'm telling you. I was in a marriage for 15 years. That was possibly the worst marriage in the history of Earth. And I gave up on the whole idea of all of that. And then I met this woman. She's not here. She's in the other room. But and she reestablished my belief in all of these things. And she makes me, yes, very, very happy. And that's been great. What else makes me happy? I don't really know, man. This new thing that I took on has brought me quite a bit of joy. After this book came out and people were coming to me, hey, would you teach me? And when some guy started this web page that we could, help people, that's actually brought a lot of joy to me too, which is something I never thought of. I, like most people, as a younger person, was concerned with one thing, right? Me and how much money I was going to make. That's all I was ever concerned with, if I'm going to be honest, right? But now that you get older, you start thinking about this whole concept of giving back, and it works. What was it? The Beatles? And in the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like the more you give, the more you get. I never thought of life like that, and I never approached life like that, but I have now been able to. And sure, you can make the argument, okay, now you've got money, so now you can do that stuff. Okay. I would argue that I should have started that a lot earlier, but it just was never the way that I thought. But now I can, and now I do it, and that's really brought a lot of good stuff into my life.
This is really a lesson that you learned from being open to the Market Wizards process, right? You went from being hesitant to even being in the book because you probably didn't want the popularity, right? Just not your personality, to finding that maybe you didn't hate it, and that teaching is something that you're finding you're actually passionate about.
Yes, it's been very, very interesting. I sit here a lot sometimes, especially on down days, and think like, fuck it, man. I'm just going to retire. I don't need this anymore. And I'm sick of the headache, and I'm sick of the misery of it all. And this is coming from a place where like the last 2 years, I had 2 great years, right?
This is a guy who's never had 2 down quarters in a row. This is how he's talking about trading, right?
It's pain. But part of the reason that I want to keep doing that is because I want to stay involved, because I want to stay involved with this whole thing that I'm doing with people. And look, there's pain with that too. There are a bunch of people that get on there, and you know what I mean? They come up with a bunch of shit and call me an asshole and whatever. I beg these people not to copy trade me. The whole premise of what I'm trying to do is, and I say it a million times, I'm not here to give you fish, man. I'm here to help you to learn how to fish, right?
You're teaching them a mindset.
No, I'm showing you my trades because I want you to understand how I'm going through my process as I trade. See my winners, see my losers, see how I handle them. But don't copy trade me because that's not going to work. But they still do. And then every time that there's a losing trade, you suck, Shapiro, and blah, blah. But most people are not like that. Most people have understood, and I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from people about that. I'm helping them and all that, and that's very that's great. That's something I
Out of every, 9 or 10 that probably just want to copy trade you, how often do you think you actually get through to somebody, right? And in the right way?
25% of the time, I would say.
It's pretty solid. It's a nice hit rate.
Yeah,
It's a nice hit rate that comes with a lot of frustration.
but like I say, it's to be expected, right? At the end, and people I've said it to them, and people come back to me and they're like, "Yeah, but why wouldn't I copy trade you? I've seen your returns, right? And if I could get those returns, I'd be more than happy." I'm like, "But you're not going to, dude, because my big line is, you don't know me and you don't know the process. I've been doing this for over 20 years, so I trust it, right? I know that drawdowns happen. I have a return stream. I know what it looks like, right? I go, but I tell them beforehand. I go, this is what's going to happen, dude. You're going to join us. You're going to take a trade. It's not going to work. Let's say we're risking 1% a trade. It's not going to work. We're both down 1%. We do it again. Not going to work. We're both down 2%. We do it again. It's not going to work. We're both down 3%. Now you say, I don't know this freaking guy, Shapiro. He sucks. He's 0 for 3, man. You know what I mean? I'm not taking his next trade. Next trade works. Make 6%. I'm up 3. You're down 3. Okay. You're like, oh, maybe this guy is for real. So I will take his next trade, but I'll double up to make up for the one I just missed. It loses. I'm up 5. You're down 6. So now there's an 11% difference between my trades and your trades over the course of 5 trades. And you're never going to make up that 11% back. That's how it's going to look. Because it's not your process. You didn't develop it. You don't believe in it. You know what I mean? That's how it's going to look. And that's why copy trading is so bad. I mean, for all you know, look, you join my thing. Okay, I was at Market Wizards. Maybe there's some legitimacy there. But for all you know, I'm completely freaking full of shit. So as soon as I have 3 trades in a row, you're going to say I'm full of shit. You're not going to take them anymore, right? So I'm trying very hard to get that through to people. There's plenty of places. If you want to turn your $10,000 into $10 million in 6 months and buy a Lambo and all that, there's plenty of places on the internet to go and do that, right? And good luck. I wish you luck. And when you're done with that and you've lost a majority of your money, which is what will happen, then if you're still interested in trading and actually learning, then come to us and hopefully we can help you get that. And we've had a bunch of people do that. One guy comes to me, oh, Jason, I lost my life. Say I have $250,000 and I only have $10,000 left. Can you help me get it back? I'm like, not really. But I can help you learn, how to slowly build a process and get a return on your money.
Let's just go.
That's not sexy. And I know that that's, not sizzle and all that. But, the good news is this is being done for a reason. And the reason is not for me to sell 1 million freaking subs so that I can get rich off of this. You know what I mean? So I don't have to do that sizzle shit.
So one thing that we've talked about with every one of our guests so far, and you're a market wizard, but it's not going to be any different. This is an important lesson. Everybody who's listening is blowing up. You talk about blowing up in your bio. Why don't you walk us through what happened, how it happened, and what you learned from it?
I was in the unfortunate position that when I started trading, I was about, 22, 23. And I was in Hong Kong and I watched the Hang Seng go from, 4,000 to 12,000 in about 2 years. And so me being young and having a little bit of extra money, I was buying and pyramiding in and leveraging and all that stuff. And lo and behold, I was 24 or 25 years old and I had not millions of dollars or anything, but I had more money than I ever thought that I would have at that age. And came to the conclusion that I must be a genius.
Trading is easy.
Yeah, who turns 40 grand into 400 grand in 2 years? I'm clearly a genius, an unstoppable, unbeatable genius. And George Soros, look out, because it's only a matter of time before I catch you, bro, right? And that's how I blew up. Because clearly the market teaches you that lesson very, very quickly.
It seems like, Sean, with a lot of these blow up stories, they come with the early success story. I had early success. I got lucky. I didn't know it was luck. Thought I
Yes.
knew what I was doing. Then I
Yes.
blew up. It's kind of like a rite of passage.
Yes. Yes. I tell it to people all the time, dude. The worst thing that can happen to you is if you come out of the gate good. It,
Yep.
it's going to kill
Happened to
you.
me. My first 4 years, I did really well, probably the best of my life, and then I've spent the rest of the 21 years since unlearning all the bad habits I learned there in those first 4 years.
I think rite of passage is the exact right way to say it. You know what I mean? Don't, and I'm sure that was in a bull market because that's always,
Oh yeah, I
right?
started in '98 trading Nasdaq stocks. You can
I know
imagine.
so many people like that started that and did that. You know what I mean? And it's such an old story. And again, all of these things that I say, right? Not because I'm trying to be a jerk. It's not because I don't want other people to trade because they're going to steal the money that I could make in the markets. You know what I mean? The markets are plenty deep. Okay. It's because I have experienced this stuff, right? Not just myself, but through others as well, right? I've worked at prop firms. I've worked at hedge funds. I've been exposed. I tell people all the time, I've been fired from so many jobs that I've had the advantage that I've seen so many different people, right? I've been able to observe it. So yes, it's an old story and a rite of passage, and it's what happens. It's happened recently, right? 20, what was it? 21 was the golden year, right? Post COVID, 2021 was the golden year.
Yeah.
And I saw so many things in 21 that were so similar. I had a friend here who was trading and, blah, 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 and she was like, oh, I don't care because if it goes down, all I got to do is hold. It always comes back. I'm like, oh, man, you're going to be freaking dead. And she wouldn't listen to me, obviously, because that was what was working. It was true. You didn't have to sell anything because it all did come back until 22 came and those stocks that everybody was trading lost 80% and still haven't come back for the most part, right? Most of them haven't come back, like at Kathy Wood's funds, right? And then you go into the next cycle after that, which is 22 comes and you learn, and I did this too. You learn, hey, there's this other thing that you can do, shorting. And that's even more exciting because then you make money when the market goes down, which is heroic, right? So you start shorting and it starts working. Well, by the time you figure it out, we're halfway through 23. So maybe you catch it. We're halfway through 22. So maybe you catch the last part of it, last part of 22. And now you're addicted to that. And then you're shorting all the way through 23. And now you lost all your freaking money again because you got so used to shorting. And the drug of shorting, I always say shorting the stock market is like shooting heroin, right? I truly believe, I'm not a doctor, but I truly believe that it sets off the same chemicals in your brain.
Yeah, dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine that shooting heroin does. And I encourage people not to short the stock market because
Is that what you think that's what you think that's what perma bears are addicted to, right? They love that thrill of being right when everyone's losing money.
there is nothing better.
Dude, they press the button and like bells and whistles go off on their brokerage platform. Like they feel so good, like they just shot up. Yeah.
There is nothing better. You're a freaking hero, dude. I used to come home from New York. I worked in New York at one point. I'd be on the train. I was short. I made money, and I'd sit on the train and just be like, "Look at these suckers, man! They're all freaking along the stock market. And I just killed it today. The market crashed, and I'm a fucking hero." There's nothing better. But the problem again is the difference between short term and long term. It's a short term fix. It's a long term problem because you get so addicted to that. And the stock market does not go down over time. It goes up over time. Okay. And this one trade that happened to make you a bunch of money and make you feel like a hero is ultimately going to be your undoing, right? Because you get addicted to that and it kills you.
And it doesn't help that we got Hollywood, making movies called The Big Short that glamorizes, these big short sellers who made a killing once, right? I mean, good for them, great, they nailed it, but they did it once.
Sean,
Everybody that I know that made money in 2000, well, not everybody that I know, but many people that I know that made money shorting in 2008, 2009. I worked at a hedge fund at that time. One guy, he made, man, it must have been $400 million, not for himself, but for the fund. Okay. And by 2013, he was done. He was blown out because he was shorting the whole way up. Right.
That's why we have so many perma bears. They got addicted during the financial crisis.
They got addicted during the financial crisis.
They also got addicted in the dot-com blow up. I mean, like I told you, I started trading NASDAQ stocks in 98. And I can tell you, I worked in a day trading firm or a prop firm. We had 40 guys in our office, a couple girls, but we all killed it in 2001, 2002, during the bear market. We were making money hand over fist on the short side. And that was where we all made money. We hated up days. It was give us the down days. That's where we make money.
Miserable.
Because the market goes down a lot faster than it goes up too. So you make quick money. I'm not going to say I don't short the stock market. I do sometimes. Okay. But I don't suggest it for 99% of the people. You know what? If you're bearish, that's fine. Then just be flat, man. You know what I mean? You would make more money. You would have made more money instead of shorting in 08, 09, even if you were fully invested the whole way down. If you kept investing every month since then, you've made more money since then than you ever would have made in 08, 09.
Yeah.
Being short. Right?
You know,
where the money to be made in that crash was buying it. Right. So
no, you're absolutely right. And Steve and I last summer, we went to Hong Kong as well as a bunch of other Southeast Asian cities, meeting traders around that area. And you might know this, Jason, that in a lot of the Southeast Asian economies, a lot of their stock markets, they don't even allow retail traders to short stocks. So their whole mindset is, if it's a bear market, we're just in cash. It's cool. And that they might be better off that way.
I can almost guarantee you that 99% of them certainly are.
It's also refreshing to hear somebody who, like, identifies as contrarian make these points about long-term trends.
It's just a question of reality. You know what I mean? Right. Like, Victor Niederhofer, who has had his share of blowouts, he always says when he gets short the stock market, he gets short a quarter size of when he gets long. And that's because he's been trading for 60 years and he's learned the lesson. And eventually you learn, hopefully, if you want to stay alive, you learn the lesson.
Yeah. Being short on anything longer than an intraday time frame is tough. You got so many forces working against you, right? Like, just think about, there's all different types of instruments, but let's talk about the stock market. When stocks are going down, you got everybody coming out of their woodwork trying to defend a stock. You got the company issuing press releases, cutting their employee numbers. They're doing everything they can to stabilize the stock price. You got government stepping in if it gets contagious, and you got lots of companies selling off. You got the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates. If you're on anything other than an intraday time frame to be short, I just feel like it's so hard. Yes, you can make great returns quickly sometimes, but generally speaking, it's a much harder game than being a long side trader.
Listen, you've got population growth, right? So the razor blade company is selling more razor blades every year just because of population growth, right? So their revenues are going up, so their company's worth more money. You've got inflation, which means they're selling their razor blades instead of for $1.20. So their revenues are going up. Okay. And you've got productivity growth, which is what humans, as much as we want to fade humans because of all the stupid things they do, they are incentivized by money, and productivity growth is what gets them there, right? And we've had nothing but productivity growth for the last how many hundreds of years? Electricity, trains, airplanes, computers, internet, and now we're getting into this next one, which I know nothing about, but theoretically is going to be the biggest one ever. I don't know if that's true, but it might be, right? So those three things alone, right, is what you're fighting.
There's secular tailwinds. I can't tell you how many fundamental people don't understand the three things that you just pointed out. Why don't you be a fundamental investor? Sounds like you might do okay.
Somebody said that last week. Somebody said this last week. I was like, okay, I could be a fundamental investor. Here's what I'll do. I will just dollar cost average into the NASDAQ every freaking month, like I should have been doing since I was 16 years old. That's a fundamental investor to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. But no one's going to give me money to do that. You know,
I was just going to say,
service for my clients, so.
I was just going to say all those reasons that you mentioned of why the stock market generally goes up. The last piece of that was the dollar cost averaging. You got millions of Americans just blindly throwing $500 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever it is, into the retirement funds that buoys the stock market over time.
It's also a uniquely American thing, Sean, right?
Yes,
like short selling.
I mean, one of my clients is a big firm, maybe one of the biggest prop firms. And I talked to the guy who's the kind of the head of it, the number two guy there every week. And he says the same thing. And he's been doing this for a very long time. And they have a lot of, they have like 150 money managers in there. And he says it to me all the time. Every time I make a bearish argument, he's like, this thing is designed to go up. Okay.
Right.
It's designed to go up. So I'm
Yeah,
not saying
absolutely
I'm
right.
short. I'm not saying I don't short. I'm saying over time, it's a horrible bet, not only for these reasons, but also the psychological reasons that go along with them, which you won't realize until it's too late.
Jason,
So Jason, a while back, you said that if you were starting over right now, you wouldn't get into trading. So if that's the case, what do you think you would get into?
Oh, man. I have no idea. I would have become a better musician and been a rock star or something, or I don't know. I don't know. I really couldn't have made it in the corporate world because I'm too much of a jerk kind of thing. You know what I mean? I'm not a good employee. I never would have made it there, and that probably goes as well for. I probably would have been a good lawyer because I can make arguments. I'm a good. I think I can speak well. But I don't think any law firm would have kept me on board because I would have been telling all the partners to fuck off, and it doesn't matter. They would have just fired me, right? Maybe I could have had my own law firm, but then you got to get clients. I'm not particularly a great salesman, so I don't know. I don't know. I like to think rock star, but at the same time, very small possibility for that to happen, right? I was in LA in the 80s, and I could have tried out to be the drummer for Guns N' Roses, but I missed my opportunity because I went back to college.
Man.
stop.
I probably wouldn't have gotten the job anyway, but whatever. I don't know what I would have done. But certainly it probably would have been Wall Street related, but I mean, I could have been like, who the hell knows, man? Who the hell knows?
All right,
Wherever it was, I would have screwed it up. The first job that I ever really got, I came out of college in the late 80s and I wanted to go to California. So, and I went to business school undergraduate and I applied to some jobs, and there was no such thing as private equity back then. They used to call it something else. But I applied to a couple companies that did that, and I got an offer from this company, Hembrecht and Quist.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the biggest one in California at that time. Well, those guys went on from what they were in the late 80s to what they became. If I had gotten that job in the late 80s and then all of a sudden that private equity thing took off in the 90s and I could have been in the middle of all that, I think, man, I could have fucking been one of these young billionaires. But the truth is I wouldn't have, because I would have fucked it up. I would have pissed off the wrong freaking boss and they would have fired me anyway. So it's not even worth thinking about what I could have or would have done, because I wouldn't have done it, because I would have wised off in my wise ass mouth. You know what I mean?
I had a similar experience in corporate America. How many jobs did it take you to realize that no matter how good of a corporate job you got, it still wasn't good for you?
Oh man, it was obvious from the first job I ever had, working at the supermarket, loading up the apples and oranges onto the shelves there. That was my first job in the summer. I didn't even make it through the summer. These guys hated it. Every day they'd have to call me in and tell me this and that. And I didn't listen to nobody, to anybody. My mom would kill me if I spoke like that, but I didn't listen to anybody. And I had one of the best, my first job out of college was one of the best corporate jobs you could ever get. I was in this incredible executive development program with HSBC, which is why I lived in Hong Kong. And listen, they paid for my housing and they paid for everything. And I was in the top echelon of the whole thing. And I could have just kissed ass my way for 50 years. And they send you all over the world. Every 2-3 years, you're sent to a different part of the world. Just in the 3 years I worked for them, I worked in 4 different countries. It was cool. And on their dime, but man, did they want to get rid of me?
Wait, hold on. Just tell us before we end this thing. What was Hong Kong like in the 90s? I think Sean and I both wish we could have seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I was single.
Oh, fuck.
I was working for a place that paid for my housing and everything. So basically all my income was discretionary income. And then I took that discretionary income and I plunged it into quite a bit of money. And, they had a direct flight to Phuket every Friday night that returned on Sunday night for, $230 or something round trip. So you tell me.
Yeah,
That's the story I want to hear. You should write a book about this.
Yeah, I think we know how this story played out. I think we're similar minds in that way. Jason, let's end it here. I have, you talked about how trading is hard. It in some ways it makes you miserable. We've established that. Okay. But I want to put you in an uncomfortable spot here, I think. I sense this might make you uncomfortable. I want to end with how clearly the role that you've created for yourself in the world of trading as a contrarian trader actually ended up being the perfect spot for you. And I want you to maybe express some gratitude for that. Tell us all the great things about the life you're living and the trading style that you're trading for you.
It's fortunate that this can pay off for somebody who is taking the opposite of everybody else. There's not a lot of things that work that way, right? This does. So that's fortunate for me. So I'm allowed to be myself, right? That's the good thing. As my wife says, I've carved out a life where I can be myself. And that is great because being yourself obviously is one of the greatest gifts that you can get, right? Most people can't really be themselves fully because they have to go to work and, whatever, play the game, and because they got to pay their mortgage and pay for their kids' college education and all that. So the fact that I can be myself is actually very, very lucky for me. In particular because I have this strong personality and I don't want to listen to anybody. So my mom always says, Jason, you've never been anybody's whore. And I take pride in that. I was broke for a long time because of it. Okay. But finally I was able to get it going and I got a couple lucky breaks. And I was able to make a living and make a nice life for myself. So that is, and I am, as much as I put it all down and say it's miserable, I am very, very thankful for that. No question about it.
Yep. I mean, how better can you end it than that, Sean?
That's beautiful. No, it's beautiful. Thank you, Jason. We really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us. I think our audience will greatly enjoy hearing your perspectives. I certainly enjoyed learning about you over the last few years. I mean, you came on my radar first when I read about you in Market Wizards, and then I've kind of followed you online ever since. And you've been appearing on our morning show at All Star Charts and Stock Market Media. So it's been a joy for me to learn more about you. And I will just say that speaking of all this contrarian business, let's end right here. I am the contrarian in this space right now because you, Straza, and our buddy JC, you guys are all goddamn Miami Dolphins fans, and I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I get the last word on that.
As a Dolphin fan, you can't say anything.
It's good. It's good though, right? You got used to losing, so that's a good trader trait.
No, it's not good. JC asked me that the last time we talked. Yeah. I'm like, that's where I learned how to be contrarian because the first trade I ever made was a high tick. I became a Miami Dolphin fan in 1972 at the age of 5. And I high ticked it. I've been waiting how many years ever since. So that's how I learned how to be contrarian.